Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cathleen Scott Podcast. On today's episode, we're speaking with Marc Hurwitz, who is the founder and owner of Crossroads Investigations. Marc joins us with a considerable background. He not only is an active investigator, he has former CIA and White House experience. He's going to talk to us today about everything investigations and also give us some practical tips on things that you can do to protect your privacy, as well as things that you can do to find people that you've been looking for. Well, let me first start by welcoming Marc Hurwitz, our guest today, to the Cathleen Scott Podcast. Marc, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You have by far one of the more interesting backgrounds of any of our other guests. So tell our audience a little bit about your background. I'll start off by saying that you are the founder and the president of Crossroads Investigation, which is located primarily in South Florida, as I understand it. But you didn't come to investigation without a very interesting background. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And we actually do nationwide work, even overseas work. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
I'm from Buffalo. I have my master's from George Washington University. I did 3 years at the White House National Security Council in the West Wing. And then I did 8 years in the Central Intelligence Agency, including some stints overseas. And I've had my company since 2008. And we have been ranked the top investigation agency by the Daily Business Review for the last 10 years in a row.
So I imagine a lot of people out there, when they think about an investigator, they're imagining the throwing of the Frisbee to serve someone when they catch it in the park.
Yeah. The gumshoe with the binoculars.
Yes. So tell us, I'm sure there's a lot more to being an investigator and a lot more services than you offer than process serving in those creative ways. So tell us a little bit about your company and what you do.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what I always thought too, as a private, about the industry. But we are a lot more than that. We're an agency. We're full service. We're white glove. We certainly do infidelity surveillance, what everyone thinks of as a private investigator.
Infidelity surveillance. I like that. I'm gonna find that into my vernacular.
Okay, good. But we also do surveillance for insurance defense. That's probably our bread and butter. For relevant to your practice, we do like work non-compete surveillance, for example, workers' comp surveillance. We find assets, we find bank accounts, we find people, we do background reports, we do employment screening, we do jury vetting, international investigations. For hospitals, we find next of kin for incapacitated patients. Any hard to find information anywhere in the world, we facilitate that for our clients.
So I'm imagining like Penelope from Criminal Minds sitting at that computer and then spouting off, within 30 miles, there are 16 white men who drive Honda Accords that are 4-door and blue. So she's got some pretty cool equipment. Do you have similar type of software and similar type of...
We spend $50,000 a year just on data. And we can search for vehicles in a radius. We can even do vehicle sightings, meaning, you ever see like in a Publix parking lot, a tow truck or a police car just cruising around? They're taking pictures of every plate, looking for people who have warrants against them or the cars are due for repossession. But they sell that data to some licensed investigators. So I can put in a plate number and see when the car was photographed, for example. There's all kinds of crazy things out there.
Wow. Now, bank records and financial records, people are always hiding. And I know a lot of people come to Florida. I'm thinking of O.J. Simpson and other, people who have come to Florida to try to escape judgments and things. So how can you help them with that? So if we think, we got a big result, we got a big verdict, and the person we're trying to collect from is now kind of winding down their company and they're hiding, and we can't collect on our big judgment. So you can help organizations and people with those types of things too.
Yeah, we love doing asset searches. It starts with a hard asset search like vehicles and properties, but we need to see, is a vehicle leased or owned? Is there a mortgage on a property? Do they have liens, bankruptcies, judgments, foreclosures, evictions against them, the UCC filings? What businesses do they have? And then we go into bank account searches. We have a legal and ethical way to search for bank accounts and brokerage accounts. Sometimes we can see the balance, not always, but that's not as important as just finding where the accounts are. And our clients can subpoena the banks. They'll get the bank statements. Sometimes they have to bring in a forensic accountant to look for the ins and outs to find hidden accounts. But that's where we come in, is to find the bank accounts.
So interesting. So once you find somebody and you're actually able to like serve them, someone that's been evading or hiding, what do you think what are some funny or common things that people who are trying to hide from service that you've seen, or what do you want people to know out there? We're going to find you, it's just a matter of time.
Yes, we don't, that's one of the few things we don't do is process serving, but we love to find hard to find people. In our industry, it's called skip tracing. That's finding people who have skipped town who don't want to be found. We have on our staff one of the nation's top skip tracers, known within our industry. Other investigation companies come to us when they get stuck finding people. The bad people, I always say Florida's a sunny place for shady people, first of all.
That's a great saying. It's true, too. It is definitely true.
Right? It keeps all of us busy, lawyers and investigators. When we are looking to find people, the bad actors will take a lot of steps to hide their whereabouts. They will do things that are not legal. They will put their vehicle registration in a P.O. box, or driver's license in a P.O. box, utility records. They plan ahead to not be found. So we have to use a lot of advanced methods a lot of times. Social media investigations, complex dark web investigations, pretexting. That means calling under pretense, either the subject or their relatives or their neighbors.
Like, I'm looking for Aunt, so-and-so.
Exactly.
I haven't seen her in 20 years. I just would love to reconnect. My kids want to meet her, that type of thing. Turns
Absolutely.
out Aunt M owes you like millions of dollars from a judgment.
We have all kinds of ruses to get people to give up information.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is what got you into this job, but listening to the cool tools that you get to use, I can kind of see, I'm already jealous. And I guess I should point out that, not everybody has access to these. So help us understand how your prior background with the CIA and your government clearances and things help you, or kind of uniquely help you be able to access various types of tools that the average person, I imagine, would not be able to have access to.
Sure, it's a great question. And when I started my company in 2008, I started working for my old bosses. These were retired CIA chiefs of stations who had acquired consulting contracts. And I was doing contracting work, not as an investigator, doing research. They taught me the tools of the trade, how to find bank accounts, how to do deep background reports, who are the vendors, what is the software, and it grew from there. I started networking. Lawyers started asking me for information. And I finally, admitted I was a private investigator. To be a private investigator, it's licensed differently in every state. There is a barrier to entry. You need either a lot of experience, you need to intern full-time 2 years, you have to take an exam, get fingerprinted. And then as far as the access to information, that is very rigid. We have to go through a lot of security protocols to pass to have access, to be able to have the privilege to pay for the information.
Wow, interesting. Are there any, for us average Joes, are there any quick tips that you can tell us if we're, say, looking for a lost loved one or trying to reconnect with someone we lost track? Is there anything we can do on our own that you might, like a quick tip you might share with our audience? Yeah,
there's all kinds of great resources out there. Like anything in life, you get what you pay for, but sometimes the cheap databases or the cheap one-offs are good enough. If someone's social media is locked down, we like going to a person's profile picture and see who's commenting on it and loving it. Those are the closest people to that person usually. We may go to their social media profiles to start looking for a subject. Another hint is on Venmo. Venmo is wide open by default. It's wide, when I speak to law firms or law sections, I always talk about this, how much of a vulnerability Venmo can be. But Venmo will show your screen name, your username, and a lot of times that's the same username that people will use for their other social media profiles. So that's another way we find people. We can, if you want to trace a phone number on Google, you put the phone number in quotes, you don't use hyphen or parentheses, and that's the best way to Google a phone number. So there's all kinds of little...
that is a great tip.
Yeah.
So what about, so sometimes in our cases, we have sexual harassment claims, and sometimes the bad actor, person who's being accused of harassment, will want to go clean up their social media, or maybe a plaintiff, even someone who's accusing another of harassment, might want to make sure their image is a little bit more cleaner than it was. So they think by deleting or cleaning things up that they're truly gone on social media. But I'm told that crafty investigators can pull some of those prior deletions back to life.
Well, there's a couple of things. One is there's the Wayback Machine, which is the Internet Archive. So you can always check old websites, for example, before they've been changed. However, legally, we cannot, as investigators, and I believe as lawyers either, friend request opposing party. So we are very careful to keep our clients safe in court, and we can only see what's publicly forward-facing. So we're not breaking into social media or trying
That's no fun. Okay, but I'm glad you clarified. Yeah. We had a non-compete case, and for listeners, when someone has signed an agreement saying they won't compete with their employer, their future employer after they leave, and I was representing the organization, and we were trying to show that the person who left had started a competitive business, and they're like, well, look at our website, we don't do any of those things. We were able to show, because we had PDF the website previously, and we were able to show from using the Wayback Machine that actually what it said previously was almost a carbon copy of what the plaintiff's employer's site had said on it. So that was a fun thing to be able to prove.
That's amazing, and I think that's a really good point about investigations in general. Is the earlier the better, especially when it comes to like asset searches before people start moving money around, and like you say, social media before they start cleaning things up or changing things around. Because as time passes, it's gonna be harder to find information.
So you worked at the White House. Are you able to share with us a little bit about what you did while you were there, or any fun facts or interesting things?
Lowest person on the totem pole. I was very young. I started as an intern, and I got hired by the Deputy National Security Advisor, a 3-star general. He was the point man for intelligence in the White House. So that's how I got into the world of intelligence.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and now I feel like things are changing at such a rapid pace, right? With the advent of AI and the use of AI. Do you use AI? Are you able to share any tools that you may have used that might help with the average everyday investigation, or other AI influences that you have?
We use AI as an ancillary service. We don't, we're very careful to not feed it too sensitive information. However, I attended a conference recently. I cannot speak to the veracity of this, but I understand is if you pay for ChatGPT, the $20 a month, that you own the information and they cannot use it to enhance their own skills.
I think you could do that. I know you could do it with Claude. I wasn't familiar you could do that with Chat, but that's an interesting idea. So it's kind of a closed learning tool. I think that is a scary thing for law firms, right? Like we don't want people learning on our clients' data, right? Because that can be quite scary. Is there any comments or thoughts that you have about the use of AI as it relates to people's cyber safety or investigation safety?
Fortunately, we have not heard of any breach of information coming out of AI yet, but it's early, so who wants to be the guinea pig, of course. But
I would imagine there'd be a lot of things that could be short-circuited. Like, for example, if you're reviewing like pages and pages of like credit card records, look in a family law case, looking for maybe a husband who was cheating or whatnot. Like you could upload that to some type of closed AI service and be like, show me all purchases that were after 11 p.m. or show me all travel dates that were during this range. That might be helpful to pull that out.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think a great example of that is our deep background reports. When we do that on people, it can be hundreds of pages long. So we summarize it for our clients, but they may want to use AI to look deeper. Also, when we use our databases, we're running 4 or 5 background reports on the same person using different software. So we have experimented with AI to compare the reports to look for unique information from each data source, make sure we're not missing anything for our clients.
So your background reports go deeper than, say, the $15 FDLE ones that we can buy. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, our background reports, for a number of reasons. First of all, it's the freshest information. It's pulling from credit header information, current vehicle registration, criminal records. If they're arrested, no matter the disposition, bankruptcies, liens, judgments, foreclosures, properties, vehicles, businesses. Now, this can be pulled without consent, but you cannot use it for employment or tenant screening purposes. That you need a separate report for under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA. Even if you're not pulling someone's credit, the FCRA still applies. And that's much more limited. First of all, you need the person's consent to run the report. The criminal records are only convictions. So if it was not prosecuted or a pretrial diversion, it shouldn't show. It only goes back 7 years for criminal and 10 years for bankruptcy. So it's a lot more limited, a lot less expensive than a comprehensive deep background report, but it depends on the purpose.
Sometimes people have their records like expunged, and maybe something happened when they were like younger or whatever. And so are there ways to get at those types of things?
Yeah, so the FCRA report should not show an expunged or sealed record. However, we have discovered that once the genie is out of the bottle, it's really hard to put it back in because there are hundreds and hundreds of databases out there. So we find.
So if hypothetically a guy testifies in a case that I've never been involved in a battery, and you learn that there was a battery and it was expunged, that'd be the kind of thing that a firm could hire you for, and you could dig that up.
Sometimes we do.
I really like your job more and more the more you talk.
Sometimes we do that for people who are running for political office, and they want to run a report on themselves to see what's going to show up, and they're looking for expunged
op research.
Yeah.
Love it. Any fun things that you can tell us about your time at the CIA? I mean, there's so much happening right now with government agencies, so I'm curious if, reflecting on your time back working at the White House and the CIA, if you have any thoughts or ideas about kind of everything that's happening in the world right now with federal agencies laying off workers left and right, and sort of civilians being invited into the federal government, if you have any thoughts about that.
I did mostly counterterrorism work, and the CIA has one client, and that's the president. And at least when I was there, we kept our heads down, out of politics. I have a feeling it may be harder now to do that, but no, I don't. I don't really touch on that subject.
Mark, is there anything I haven't asked you want me to ask you about that you think would be fun and exciting for our listeners?
So about international investigations, I do love talking about the importance of boots on the ground.
Okay, so let me say this. So, as the world gets more global, I mean, we're basically a remote law firm. We have people in other countries, other states working for the law firm. And I imagine your investigation must go further, too, than the boundaries of any particular country or state. So what do we need to know about how sort of small the world is getting in terms of how far that we can reach?
Right. So, I always use the example of Sunbiz. My company is, as you know, Crossroads Investigations. But if you're sitting in another country and you figure out that Sunbiz is the depository of corporation listings in Florida and search for Crossroads Investigations, it's not going to come up because we're Crossroads SDI. Our registered fictitious name is Crossroads Investigations. There's no way you're going to know that sitting in Spain or Venezuela or China. So it's really important to have boots on the ground in every country to help you find the right information, what's possible, what's not, how much it's going to cost, what's legal. From my time at CIA, along with my Association of International Organizations, we've developed a really good network of agents overseas, and we have a ton of international cases all the time.
That's fascinating. We too have like an international presence, and to the extent that like as people are hiring more people to work remotely, I find myself needing to know counsel in Italy or France to say, hey, I have that my client wants to hire someone in these countries, and we got to make sure we're compliant with their country's rules and laws. Denmark and things too, very difficult to employ if you don't know all the details of the country's ins and outs. Lots of time off and different issues with overtime and things like that. So it's nice to have that connection on an international basis. So I'm happy to hear that you have that too. And you never know. I mean, an investigation might start here, especially in South Florida. You could be doing business with a company, and then they're tied to Italy or to Cuba or to Spain. It's just very international, cosmopolitan type of locations.
Yeah, and we're doing, the client is being done a disservice if it's not using in-country resources. Yeah.
And just to clarify, SunBiz is the Secretary of State website you were speaking about earlier. It's kind of how you find out if a company is licensed and where they're what they call their home or their principal place of business. And not every state has that, but not every has it online. Almost all of them do now, I think. But I know there was a time where you used to have to write a letter and send it to North Carolina and be like, can I please get the name of the company's registered agent? So we've come a long way from those days.
Yeah, well, Marc, some states you have to pay.
That is nice. So, Marc, you have this incredible background working in the White House at the CIA. It's an experience that the average person might not understand, what that means or entails. So, are there any key takeaways or important information that you want to share based on that background and experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. The first is almost every case is not life or death. And coming from a world where mistakes could lead to life or death situations, it's helped me learn perspective on dealing with cases. However, when our clients call, especially non-lawyer clients are calling into a private investigator, it takes a lot of courage to pick up the phone and call a private investigator. And people are calling us in an emotional state. So, empathy is a really important quality that we practice with our clients. It's a lot of really high emotions going on in these cases. So, that's something that I've kind of have taken from government, both perspectives, not to take it so seriously, but to also understand people are coming from a world of hurt and pain to pick up the phone to call us.
That's great insight. And I know one of the other services you offer is if you're going to a trial, and obviously the difference between winning and losing is often who is sitting as the decision maker, which is the jury. In a civil case, typically 6 individuals to decide. So, what kind of services? How can you help lawyers? We all have an idea about what we think would be a good jury, but we're doing all the things we're taught not to do, right? Judging people based on their backgrounds or their jobs or things. But I know that there's a science to it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we got into jury vetting services about maybe 6 or 7 years ago because we were asked to do it. And now we've honed a process which our clients really love. As you know, the morning of voir dire, the morning when you get called in for jury duty, and you're actually called into the courtroom, there may be 40 to 60 people that they're going to choose the jury from. And that process could take maybe 3 or 4 hours. So our client ahead of time has told us what their ideal juror looks like. Their education, their employment, their politics, their social media. Maybe are they divorced? Maybe are they a business owner? Have they ever been arrested? Have they ever declared bankruptcy? All kinds of variables that they're going to let us know. We will have one person in the courtroom and 5 or 6 people in the back office looking at those 40 to 60 people over those 3 to 4 hours. Social media, LinkedIn, political contributions, deep web research, and we're putting together a live Google sheet, filling in all the blocks, all the squares. We are catching potential jurors lying, which is a free strike for our clients. For example, they'll say they've never been convicted when they have. And if we find the primary document and our client will show.
You're like fact-checking in real time.
Yeah. They lie about where they work. They conceal where they work. And so we find all kinds of reasons to get free strikes for our clients, which is gold, of course, for our clients. And then we're analyzing the jurors. Yes, no, maybe based on their.
So it's really interesting approach because I've always considered like a jury selection expert comes up with what are they looking for to be what they think would be the greatest juror, but you're actually doing something a little bit different than that, which is basically like taking the data that you have and informing the decision, about truthfulness, which is obviously key. You want candid people deciding other people's future, but also it's important to know if someone has filed bankruptcy, that could inform your decision on whether or not they can award damages against somebody, particularly if that bankruptcy was the result of a large verdict against them, right? Yes. So that is really critical information. That's a great service.
Yeah, and have they been involved in lawsuits, or what kind of political contributions have they made? All kinds of variables that can help us inform what kind of person is this,
Wow, I'm definitely jealous, Marc. Your job is more interesting than mine. It's a pleasure speaking to you today. This was really fun. You've taught us a lot about Yeah, about investigation. In closing, anything you want to say to the audience? And tell us how to reach you. Give us a social media plug, all of the above.
Sure. We're the letter X Investigations. That's Facebook, Instagram, our website. It's all X Investigations. Our email is info@X Investigations. And we really pride ourselves. We have on our company core values of responsiveness and white glove service. So we are always eager and ready to help. Yeah.
And if there's individuals out there that feel as though it's just too expensive, do you have options to do more a scaled up or scaled down type of investigation that will fit everybody's budget?
Yeah, we're very protective of our clients' budgets, and they have to be, of course, realistic. But we try our best to help our clients.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Cathleen Scott Podcast. We hope this was fun and informative. We'll catch you on the next one. You can find us online at scottlawteam.com or floridalaborlawyer.com. Thank you for joining.